Hey there, welcome to the Alexa Z Show, because life should be fun and meditation should be easy. Today we're going to shed some light on cognitive decline. Now that doesn't sound very exciting or very motivational, but I promise you by the end, I will do everything in my power, because it's what I do, it's how I roll, to motivate you to put some, not only meditation, but some other good stuff into your life. Here's why I am doing this today. It does have to do with meditation, and that's how I roll. It's what I love. But last week's episode was with two wonderful women regarding integrative health. I did an interview with them at Turning Point Healthcare. And if you haven't listened to it, please go back. It's extremely interesting. But if you didn't hear it, that's okay too. But I have a story I'm going to tell you today, and a reason why cognitive decline scares the living hell out of me, and I am dedicated to trying to slow my own down. Over the past few years, I have intimately watched my mother's cognitive health decline. My mom is currently in a memory care facility being well taken care of, and I love her to pieces. But I am going to put myself out there a little bit, because I think personal stories, kind of all you got, right? So when it came to trying to diagnose Alzheimer's, dementia, and whatnot with my mom, it was really hard. Accurately diagnosing anyone is really tough, and it's quite humiliating. I'm embarrassed I can't remember what I ate for dinner last night. I cannot imagine how my mom felt taking memory tests back in the beginning. But I will never forget the look in her eyes when she asked me after the first test, "I did okay, right?" Well, it was quite a while before we figured out what was going on, or at least got a decent picture of her brain health. I also remember sitting there looking at the brain at MRI scans and with my mother. And I admit I have erased those memories from my mind for a long time, but I think it's important to share, because it's the reality of growing older, and it's the reality of the life and the stressful world we live in. I don't think we ever really know precisely where all the problems lie with these diseases. But I will say this, as her daughter, I will never really understand what's going on. I'll try like heck. And perhaps I don't even feel like I believe what all the doctors tell me. No disrespect to the doctors. She's been with amazing doctors and still is. But my mom is my mom. She is no one else's. Well, she's my sister's mom too. But I know far better than the doctors what she used to be like. She was bright and funny, intelligent, bitchy, annoying, and a bit of a badass. Crap. I think some people might describe me this way too, which is why I get scared. Does it mean I'm going to slide down the slippery slope of cognitive decline also? Try to say that fast. Now, hang on. This is motivational. This is not morbid. This podcast is positive. So let's talk about what we can do to help preserve what we have in our brain, in our skull right now. I truly believe you can have a significant impact on slowing your own decline. You are you and nobody else. But according to a lot of people I talk to on a daily basis, they ignore any thoughts of memory decline. I'm here to say, don't ignore anything. Don't be scared, but be your own best advocate. According to a lot of medical people out there, including those on the last podcast, they seem to also agree. So go grab a glass of water, since we do know our brains are around 70 or maybe even a little bit more than that % water. And water can help your brain, which means it can help your memory. So let's stop saying, I hate running to the bathroom all the time. Why? Are you worried it's going to add too many steps to your Fitbit? Consider running to the bathroom part of your exercise routine. Go get a glass of water, hang tight, and let's have a memorable episode. A show for those who want to meditate, or maybe tried, loved it one day, hated it the next, or maybe forgot why the heck they're supposed to do it anyway. Well, you landed on the right show. Do you still find yourself wishing you had more time, waking up tired, wanting to take back what you just said to your boss? Seriously, don't you just want to spend a peaceful, productive day with time left to learn the guitar and start that $1 million side hustle? Follow me at alexazmeditates.com/podcast, and let's make it happen. Hey there, Alexa Z here. in the last episode, like I mentioned at the beginning, looking at the interview with Turning Point and Dr. Danielle McDevitt and Katie Tully, it really hits home with me about how important it is to look at ourselves and our health as whole people, from nutrition to sleep to stress. You got to look at everything. And they say when you start a podcast, things will change. You know, you have a topic, you stick to it, but it changes. And where I can see this podcast changing for me, hopefully you like it, is I'm not a doctor, but I love talking to them and I love learning and I love seeing the big picture. And I absolutely love the combination of Eastern and Western medicine. So to me, it makes common sense. I'm a person who likes to simplify things, maybe because that's like the way I like things fed to me. So I hope you like the fact that I'm going to simplify some things about taking first steps to health. It's as easy as taking the first step, right? Well, when it comes to memory and cognitive decline, every day. Today I was playing pickleball. Don't laugh. I love it. It's awesome. Don't make fun of it unless you try it. And today alone, at least one person talked about their memory. Usually it's because no one can remember the score. But literally we're like, oh yeah, I heard people saying, oh yeah, my memory's just terrible. You know, it's getting worse all the time. Or, oh, I've always had a bad memory. How many people say I've always had a bad memory? Stop labeling yourself as having a bad memory unless you consider it a badge of honor, which I don't think you do. So going back, I'm going to try to wrap this in a little bit around my personal story with my mom. So my mother's quote unquote diagnosis is part dementia, part Alzheimer's, regular aging, and also she has hydrocephalus, which is when you have fluid on the brain. I'm not going to go down that route. That's affecting her ability to walk, or at least it started with that. And so the hydrocephalus part I'm going to leave out, because when they did discuss that with me, they did not feel it was connected to her memory. So right now, I'm going to stick with dementia and Alzheimer's. And the quick layman summary of these diseases, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just putting some context around this. So dementia, think of it as non-reversible decline in mental function. Usually it has to do with vascular issues, vascular dementia. But dementia is also a catch-all for several disorders. So think of it like an umbrella, where Alzheimer's is considered one of the most common forms of dementia. So think of Alzheimer's underneath that dementia umbrella. And it's somewhere, don't quote me, like 60 to 80% of cases under dementia are Alzheimer's. Specific decline in mental function, slow and irreversible. Well, my mom has a little bit of everything. She has a little bit of, like I said, old age, a little bit of dementia, a little bit of Alzheimer's. That's a really kind of tough diagnosis, right? It's like, well, how much is which? How long is it going to take? What does each part of your brain look like? It's very, very, very hard. But what I wanted to do is kind of look at my mom's life, which is very connected to the way I live my life and some things I've struggled with. And I started thinking about my mom. Let's get really, really specific here. My mom had a lot of chronic stress, chronic anxiety, or perhaps I can say she had chronic anxiety that caused chronic stress. If you look at alcohol, yeah, but I mean, I don't think, from what I know, that wasn't one of the significant causes, because there is also alcohol-related dementia. If I look at her nutrition, and again, I'm like a 52-year-old now analyzing a mother, way later in life. So this is just by memory. Our nutrition, yeah, I guess growing up as a kid, it seemed like it was okay. We didn't have a lot of money, and we were from the era of the TV dinners. And, I loved TV trays and Swanson's TV dinners. My mom wasn't a bad cook, but she did what she could with the money she had. My mom always had gut issues. Always had gut issues. It's like if I ever didn't hear my mom say, oh, my stomach's bad, then it has to have been 6 out of 7 days of the week. Later on, she was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And I remember her also wearing that like a badge. She couldn't eat anything because she had irritable bowel, until I found a cookbook for her all about irritable bowel. And then she felt really empowered and she started cooking differently and eating differently and it went away. Well, sleeping, let's see, the sleep part of my mom's life, I think she was always a good sleeper. She slept an enormous amount, which can also be related to stress and anxiety and depression. So maybe she slept more for that. I don't know. But as she got much older, she definitely slept a ton. We always, as kids, said, she'd fall asleep on the couch at 7 and then go right to bed at 9. And I always thought, wow, that's great. My mother sleeps a ton. Both my parents slept really well. And now you're finding that as you get older, more and more sleep is not always what you need. It's not as good. Then let's hit the hormones. I don't know. She said that going through menopause, she felt being miserable, nervous, and teary throughout menopause was exactly the way it was supposed to be, which scared the living hell out of me, which also, that'll be another show, is, again, I am 52, and I refuse to be nervous, teary, and miserable throughout my menopause. So I don't want to make it sound like my mom's life was all negative, but that was the reality. But the big one, big, anxiety. Absolutely anxiety. The good side, remembering my parents' life, great friendships. Amazing. They had a group of 16 sets of friends. They're called the Knitting Kittens. And they didn't even knit. It's pretty funny. But they had great friends. They had a great support structure. They were very spiritual. They loved the Catholic Church, had great friends, did a lot with the Knights of Columbus. I want to say we had a great family. Most of our extended family lived far away. So we have a small family. I grew up in Connecticut, but most of my family is from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So did her way of living bring on these diseases, or did the diseases bring on her chronically stressed system? Maybe a little bit of both. But the chronic stress is usually coupled with sleep issues, emotional issues, crappy nutrition, blah, blah, blah. So here you've got a woman that grew up with regular stressors of life, especially me and my sister. It was just two of us. My sister is 6 years older than me and was born with a hearing defect, which caused lots of stress for my parents. We had financial troubles. We were not poor, but we certainly always had financial struggles. Both my parents, I always remember working multiple jobs. We lived with less money in Connecticut, which is a pretty expensive place, and on and on and on. But how did they deal with it? How did my mom deal with all of this? And there is a point to this, so hang with me. How did she deal with it? Lots of therapy. Yes. Thank God somehow she got therapy. Drugs? Yes. And if I could go back and change things, I would throw away every anxiety drug. Now, I am not saying that drugs are not meant for certain reasons and people use them, but my specific situation was a narcotic that my mother was put on. I'm not going to say the drug. That's not my place. But it has a really, really strong effect on your memory, and it's very, very difficult to get on. Well, my mother is in a facility right now, and she is still on that drug because she's been on it for so long that it's near impossible to take her off it. It would actually be very detrimental to her life quality. I would up her self-care. I would up her nutrition. I would analyze that gut health and figure out, where is all of this coming from? Is it just stress? Is it nutrition? Are there things missing from her life? Is there, I don't know, anything from vitamin D to B12 to zinc to selenium to on and on and on? Like, what is it? I don't know. How were her hormones? I don't know. And yes, that was part of the era of growing up. Well, guess what? I'm in a different era, and I don't want that in my life. I grew up tons of anxiety. I meditate because when I was 17, after a long, stressful childhood with anxiety, meditation was my pill. And you guys have heard a lot of that story, so I'm not going to go back to that story. But do you see a connection here? This is why I'm worried. When I can't remember what I ate for dinner, or my life is so crazy that I'm not focused, I need to do something about it. And if we go back to the doctors from last week, Dr. McDevitt and the nurse practitioner, they said a lot about how they look at people's lives and what they prescribe. They prescribe as natural as they can, mixing Eastern and Western. They look at their lives. They look at their nutrition and their sleep. They look at everything, and they look at stress. Well, Stress affects 3 parts of your brain. The amygdala, which processes your emotions. It's part of the limbic system. Stress affects your hippocampus, which is the part of your brain, think of it as learning and memory. And the prefrontal cortex. That's where you do your tough stuff, your cognitive behavior, decision-making, and expression of personality, handling social situations. So let's keep this simple and go back to stress. It's one of the most common causes and changes to the brain. Now, my mom's story, I'm sorry if it was a little long, but I wanted you to see. I think you heard it. Stress and anxiety were an underlying part of all of that. There was a rat study where the rats were subjected to chronic stress. Their hippocampus shrunk. And I think there was a recent update, and it was even brief stress had an effect. I'll include the rat study in the show notes. It's really interesting. So let's talk about meditation. Huge impact on stress. My good old definition that I always go back to, meditation is a practice. It's a training. Lowers your stress. Puts you in the non-stress, rest and digest, hits the rest and digest button. So, as you're meditating, you're changing parts of your brain. There's connections in neural pathways. They're kind of loosened, and that may sound weird, but as those paths loosen, it means less anxiety. So if you have less anxiety, you have less distractions. Your brain begins to work better. There's more unity in your brain. You're not driving your brain all over the highway, crazy willy-nilly, being driven by fight or flight. Meditation has an incredible impact on our brain. And what the doctors said was, hey, we look at all our patients. We look at their nutrition and their gut health and their hormones and their adrenals and their sensitivities, their diet sensitivities, their toxic environments. And if you go back to that episode, they said, we always prescribe meditation. And then I choked when they said it's one of the hardest things. Well, I will say, they're in my town and they're great people, and I'm privileged that they recommend a lot of their people come and learn meditation from me. And I was quick to tell them how few of them come. Now, we have great testimonials of people who have built meditation into their lives from all types of different things. Some cholesterol and heart things jump to the forefront in my memory, and they're great stories. But I don't know why. And I'm here to try to help you not have it be so hard, because you were born able to meditate. And today, or when you were born, you still can meditate. It isn't hard, I promise you. So today's episode, it's not about getting Alzheimer's or dementia. It's not about declining as you get older. It's about giving you the motivation to say, there are things you can change. Start looking at yourself. I showed you my mom. I opened up my heart and showed you things that she went through. I told you as a daughter things I wish I could go back and change. As an advocate for everyone out there suffering, as an advocate for every person who takes care of people with these diseases, I am right there with you. It is not easy. So let's continue to help them in any way we can, looking at all these different aspects of their life. And let's help ourselves. Let's help our brains. And let's just start. Let's just pick stress. Let's lower our stress. The more we lower our stress, the easier it will be to look at all those other things. Then suddenly, nutrition might not seem so difficult. Exercise won't seem so difficult. Looking at our blood and hormone makeup, looking at things that these doctors are looking at, we can do it. But let's take one step at a time. And today I'm here to say meditation helps your brain. It helps your brain. It will help you slow your cognitive decline. And it's really easy. Maybe it's going to take a little bit of study. I really suggest you study, and I would love to teach you. So go for it. And if you are a current meditator and you believe what I'm saying, please use the story. Use the story of my mom. Use the story of anyone you know. Help them to know your meditation can help your memory. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you were motivated and not feeling morbid about how difficult it is to be around these diseases and our own cognitive decline. But don't fool yourself. If you feel like your memory is lacking, don't just put a label on it and say, memory's terrible. No, do something about it. Life is too short, and I want you to remember every single moment of it. So be present, do your meditation, and please do me a favor. Go hit subscribe, leave a review. It doesn't have to be anything big. Just hit the little button, hit a star, give me a couple quick pieces of feedback. I am going to dedicate my practice to all these parts of making us healthy and increasing our longevity because, well, I'm selfish and man, I'm in it too. Have a great day. Peace out. Later, taters.